It turns out 2 months ago I was asked to go down to Ligonier and participate in a South Sudan network meeting. And it was 3 days long. I took as many notes as I could. It was about 20 pages. And so I could rattle those off, but we'd be here through lunch. So I'm just going to give you a few highlights. We did have about 40 individuals who were in attendance. I will say that maybe 10 or 12 were in attendance from South Sudan, one individual from Sudan. Both of the families that we support strongly and have for 4 or 5 years, maybe longer, the Smith Mathers, Shelvis and Nancy. We saw them both on Zoom from South Sudan. We saw Bob and Christy Rice. If you remember 2 years ago, Christy was here and provided a service for us. Also had Sharon Candela. She has the most amazing title, Regional Liaison to the Horn of Africa. What that boils down to, she's a coordinator for all of the mission co-workers in South Sudan and surrounding countries, including in addition to Sudan and South Sudan. But they struck off and told us really what the current situations are in Sudan. And for just a quick refresher, keep in mind that back in 2009, Sudan and South Sudan had a referendum and they voted to break South Sudan off from Sudan and become a nation. In those 2 years, they cobbled together a government from tribal leaders, military, financial, everybody that you can think of, and they tried to make the government work. And they promised to do a free democratic election 4 years later in 2015. So 2011 is when the country was established. The 2015 vote in which they are going to elect government officials has been delayed. It was delayed, I think, 4 or 5 times in about 2 weeks prior to the September conference I went to. It was pushed out another 2 years. So the government right now isn't providing what we expect a government should be providing for their people. We did hear a lot of, I'll say, enlightening on what the challenges are. One of the big challenges, South Sudan has somewhat of a civil war going on. Sudan is completely in disarray. And as a result of those past conflicts, we have in refugee camps now in Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, and the total number right now, a couple of years back we had a reasonable counting, but it's over 3 million people. If you'll notice up on this map, this is Sudan. South Sudan is in green here. Notice Ethiopia, which is on your right. Down at the bottom is Kenya, and due south of South Sudan is Uganda. Those 3 countries have been very generous. They have their own problems, they have their own challenges, but those 3 countries have supported South Sudan a great deal, and most of the refugee camps are on the borders of those 3 countries. There are others, but a lot of people are in a tough spot. Some of these refugee camps are so old that some of the folks that a couple of us have been over there, talked to, they were born in those camps. That's how long they've existed. The UN is strapped trying to support them. I don't want to dwell too long on the negatives. I will tell you right now they're having a great deal of flooding. And notice right up through the middle of Sudan is the Nile River, and that comes out of Lake Victoria. And because of some changes in the lake, they've had some significant flooding in South Sudan. They're wrestling with that. About 735,000 people in South Sudan have been displaced from their homes, from their villages, and that's tough enough, but the country only has a population of 12.5 million. So that's a pretty high percentage. Not only are they displaced, but that same flooding has wiped out a lot of farmland that's providing food, vegetation, meat, so it's increasing the problem with hunger. Enough on that. That's enough negatives. But I would say two of the 3 days we talked about some very positive things going on. Many of the villages, because of the mission work that's being done there, have now kindergarten classes. And all of a sudden, mothers are bringing their children to kindergarten classes, and the mothers are learning to read. The literacy rate is somewhere in the mid-90s for all of South Sudan. There's been, over the last couple of years, a great deal of expansion of the churches that are available. It's more than doubled in the last 2 years. We have about 50,000 members regularly attending church in South Sudan. We heard from several different people who talked about what they were doing. One pair of mission co-workers that just returned, and they did 2 things that were very logical. There's some great people going to South Sudan and other places in the world and producing wells, drilling wells, but in many cases it was an engine that nobody had any parts for, it's failed, or it was just a matter of digging a hole and providing a crank that you could crank up a bucket of water. One mission worker is, in fact, I don't know what his title was, but he deals with water. And he converted several of those wells so that they have a very simple, plain Jane winch, solar power. So that instead of going to the well with an empty bucket, they can simply go there, draw their water from solar. The same individual, when he went there, he and one other took 300 devices, I'll call them. They look like a Kindle. It's a Bible, but not only is it a Bible, it's a solar-powered Bible. And remember, I said the illiteracy rate? These were all talking Bibles provided to multiple villages in their language, so that despite the illiteracy, they can still hear the word. I will tell you that I have several other examples, but I'm not going to put you to sleep like I did the mission committee last week, telling you about all of them. But I have a handout that I put together, and there are probably enough there to provide one per family. Please take it, read it. When you make your donations and you look at the budget during the congressional meeting now and in January, that's where some of the money is going to help these folks out, do what we can for them. And if you have any other following questions, please refer to me. I'm glad to talk about it. Thank you.